It's Friday night. It's the preview show. It's the No Nay Never podcast.
Hello and welcome to the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. Back after an extended break, I am your host Natalie Bromley, but joining me is the main man himself, our headliner for the preview show, Dave Statman Roberts. Dave, hello.
Hello, Natalie, and welcome back. And I think I've got a chorus of the Dawn chorus in my gardens playing on all day. And it's if you hear chirping in the background, it's the blackbirds in my garden.
That's it. We like our preview show to have a little bit of background noise. Listeners, for all of you who are listening to this before the Palace game, it is Friday afternoon that we are recording this preview show, and it is hotter than the sun in the UK at the moment. So please forgive a very much wilting Natalie Bromley and Dave Roberts. I've literally just before we press record switched my fan off because all you could hear was this all the time picking up by the mic. So I am very much sweltering, and as you can hear, Dave's got his window open. So he did offer, bless him, to shut his window, but I didn't want him to pass out halfway through the recording. So you're going to have to suck it up, I'm afraid, guys, and have your weekly preview show with a heavy dose of chorus songbirds. Dave, we are, of course, recording this the morning after the night before. Our first home game since the Project Restart came on. Turf Moor, an empty Turf Moor in the glorious sunshine. What a result!
We did very well, yeah. I thought the first half an hour in particular, we came out really well. We should have been a goal, maybe two up at half time. I thought we had a really good first half. Watford came into it in the third quarter. We've obviously got the drinks breaks now breaking up the game. So I was using American football technology to describe the game. And it was the third quarter was where Watford had the dominance within the game. But we did really well. Got the winning goal. Great cross from Dwight McNeil. Fantastic glancing header from Jay Rodriguez for his 50th Burnley goal, which was really good. We saw the game out. We didn't really have too many worries after that, but we did really well and really deserved the win.
It is. Was it not Brownhill who did the cross?
Brownhill played the pass, and then it was
of
cross,
course,
wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. It was. Yeah, my wilting brain is going. I think I wanted to speak to you actually about the drinks break before we started. I was a bit sceptical about them at first because of this whole breaking up the flow of play. But actually, for a side like Burnley, a forced drinks break can massively work in our favour.
I think regardless of your views on it, we don't usually play football in June and July, and it was really, really hot, even though it was a 6 o'clock kickoff at Turf Moor. I think it's common sense to have the drinks breaks. And yeah, definitely playing this time of year, regardless of everything else that's going on with the setup and the background to it. I think it's the right idea, and we definitely need to do that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I do think that. I think that's definitely the case. We've got to look after these players, especially as it's going to take them a couple of games to get back to full fitness. Felt very odd seeing an empty Turf Moor, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it's kind of I think it hit earlier in the day. I think the fact that we weren't going to be there for the game. You know, we're used to going to home matches. I think I'd missed 2 in the last decade. So yeah, not being there for a home game was a strange feeling. It hit home as the day went on. But it's one of those things. I don't think it can be helped in the situation. I don't think I'd really want to be in a ground in the current situation. I think it's the right decision. Definitely. And we'll just have to see how quickly and how safely we can get things changed from next season. My suspicion is next season isn't going to start as normal. It may well be that it's going to be a phased approach. When I think I read something in the programme, I've got the match day programme delivered. It was mentioned about there being a phase 4 and 5. We're at phase 3, I think, in terms of being able to play behind closed doors. There's then a phase 4, which is partial fans allowed inside the ground, so reduced capacity, 20-25%, whatever that might be. And then phase 5 is obviously back to normal again. Although even with that, I think even normality will be changed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I have read some reports that I think the sports minister wants the Premier League to have the fans back by the start of the season. They do not want to start the season without fans. I just think the timings are not going to work. I mean, I can't see how that's going to happen. But let's see. I mean, that said, Bournemouth Beach yesterday. You never know. You never know, Dave. We might have a second spike before we know it, and we'll be back in lockdown, and none of us will be at the football. Who knows what's going to happen? Final thought that obviously we're going to look into.
The Thunder's arrived now, by the way.
Oh, has it? Have you got the storm?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Can we hear it? Let's go quiet for a second.
Near the rain, maybe. I don't know.
It's gone quiet. I'm really jealous. I know this is terribly British, but I'm desperate for the storm. I'm like, okay, hot weather, I'm done with you now. Can we have a storm? My poor cats are flaked out everywhere. Obviously, we're going to look into we'll analyse the game in a bit more depth on the main show, probably Saturday over the weekend. We'll record it. But it felt nice last night at the end of a very, very difficult week on and off the pitch for Burnley. I guess it gave me a lot of comfort last night, Dave, to see that with everything that's going on, with all the drama and all the nonsense that we're having to put up with at the moment, that a massively reduced Burnley side that couldn't fill this new bench, that had half of its key players either released out of contract or injured, that we still massively dominated a Watford side who, albeit, are at the bottom of the table at the moment. Well, not, you know what I mean? They're in a relegation battle, but they are still considered to be a well-established mid-table Premier League side, and we more than coped with them last night.
Yeah, it was a big contrast, wasn't it, between Monday night when Manchester City, we know they're capable of turning it on and doing that against sides, and we bore the brunt of it on Monday, and could have been a lot more. They were 5-0 up just after the hour, and could have gone on to score another 2 or 3 goals quite easily. Perhaps they let their foot off the gas slightly for the last 30 minutes. But yeah,
just a bit.
Yeah, but it was a real contrast, wasn't it? I thought we managed the game very well. I think the problem's going to be if we suffer too many more injuries or possibly even suspensions. I know that James Tarkowski's not going to get 10 yellow cards now. I think he's on 8, and there's only 1 more before the cut-off. But Ashley Westwood's on 9, so if he was to get a yellow card against Crystal Palace, he would miss 2 games, I think it would be, for 10. So we need to be a little bit wary of that. And then obviously Jay Rodriguez, he went off, looked like he'd had a bit of a knock to his ankle. I think they have had the press conference today. It's not clear yet whether he's definitely going to be available for this match against Palace.
Yeah, did anybody? I mean, I've not seen anything across social media, any news about Jay. I've not seen that he is definitely injured.
They're assessing it. I think they've said they're assessing it. So it's quite soon afterwards, isn't it? With there was a press conference today. I think the question was asked, and they are assessing it.
Keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
Oh joy! Kevin Long up front, anyone? He'll score. We'll put Kevin Long up front. He'll score a hat-trick, and that'll be it. It'll be Dyche won't drop him for the rest of the season.
There was some other progress today as well. I think the EFL had a change of heart with the situation is the players who've been out on loan weren't eligible to come back and play for their parent clubs. And I think the Championship teams can certainly do that now. As it happens, the Premier League, I don't think they've come out and said anything on it, but we had quite a few players out on loan, didn't we, who potentially certainly would be strengthening our bench, even if they weren't pushing for a starting berth, likes of Anthony Glennon was out there, wasn't he? Josh Benson as well. So there are some other options we might have had they not been out on loan, and that that option being taken away from Sean Dyche as it stands. But who knows? Maybe that might possibly change.
Well, it was a dumb rule to start off with. Can we get that out there? It was a stupid rule. So actually, I think that they need to bring that back. And then you never know. I mean, 42 points, Dave. We're done. We're definitely going to be. Yeah, we're absolutely safe. Yeah. There is no way that you need 43 points this season to.
No, not with the number of teams down there.
I would argue that, well, if you remember, of course, I spent the vast majority of the first half of the season convinced that you would need 30 points. not 30, 40 points. Just because if you remember, a lot of the teams at the bottom were taking points off the teams at the top. So a lot of the top 6 were dropping points left, right and centre, and all of those bonus points were cascading down the bottom of the table. But as tends to happen, the win rate of the bottom side slowed down a bit around Christmas. And I would argue that if we lost all 9 games and we ended up the season on 39, we would probably still be safe. We'd probably finish 17th, but
7 games. We've only got 7 left, haven't we?
No, I meant before the season
started.
Right,
yeah.
We should have lost all 9.
Yeah.
I still think 39 would have been enough. We are safe. But with that in mind, if the Premier League do relax this rule, then why not play some of these kids? Why are we pushing and risking injuries? Because if they get their way, there's not going to be a massive break in between this season finishing and next season starting. So, why not give them a run around and let's see what they can do, and let's just give them an experience. They've been out on loan all season. They can be on a bench. Does it matter if we lose? No, it doesn't. It's absolutely fine. Right, let's get on with business. We're chatting away about what's been going on this week. Let's actually preview a game. Quiz question. Now, I was not around when you did the last preview show, but I believe that the question that you posed to our listeners last episode was, we asked you if you could name the Burnley player who had scored the most goals in all matches between Burnley and Watford. Dave, what should our listeners have said?
Well, if they'd said Andy Cook or Gareth Taylor, or preferably both, then you would have been right, as both players had scored 5 goals each for Burnley in past matches against Watford.
Some blast from the past there. Gareth Taylor. He used to be my favourite player. I remember him. Did he go to Brentford or Charlton or somewhere? He left on quite bitter terms, didn't he, if I remember rightly, to Gareth Taylor?
Well, he's now the Manchester City ladies manager, isn't he?
Is that a fact?
Well, he was the last football game I ever saw was the FA Youth Cup match over at Manchester City's Academy Stadium, and at the time he was the manager of the Manchester City Academy, the youth team there. But during the lockdown break, he's been given the Manchester City ladies manager.
That has completely missed my radar.
Well, there you go.
And I would say that if I was going to watch, I'm a big fan of women's football, and if I was going to watch, and I do, watch a women's side other than Burnley FC women, Manchester City would be the one, predominantly because a lot of lionesses, who are one of my favourite players, will play for Manchester City, and I like watching them play, and of course they are Northern. So that had completely missed my radar.
It's a good job someone's on the ball, isn't it?
It absolutely is, Dave. I have said this numerous times over our lifetime of working together, but what would I do without you? I would be in a mess. I'm going to do that afterwards. So that is a good thing. Now, I don't recall us having any correct answers to that one, Dave. Did you get any directly?
No, I didn't see any on Twitter either, so I think we'd stump people on that one.
Yeah, I think we did. Either that or our certain usual candidates are not got their eye on the ball. So you know who we're talking about. We're going to be waiting for your answers next episode. We're going to, of course, give you another quiz question at the end of the show. So keep your ears open, your eyes peeled, your technical brain switched on, and we will test you again before the end of the show.
Opposition stats.
Okay. We have a game. Dave, Crystal Palace, away from home, Monday the 29th of June at 8 p.m, which is going to be live on Amazon Prime Video and Twitch, of all places. So, why don't you kick us off by letting us know what happened since we last met?
Yes, well, we played Crystal Palace at the end of November and we lost at Turf Moor. They beat us 2-0. That left us in 8th place at the time, and Crystal Palace moved up to 10th place. They were on the same number of points as us, but just behind on goal difference. We both had 18 points at the time. You may remember that Crystal Palace's win was a bit of a smash and grab. Certainly my recollection of the match. They got goals from Wilfred Zaha and Jeffrey Schlupp. And they were also, Palace's only 2 shots on target, so it was a little bit of a Maybe unjust result in that respect. But since then, both teams have hovered around the middle of the table, and we're both, we seem well clear of any trouble at the bottom, as we touched on earlier. But there is everything still to play for in terms of European places up for grabs. I think certainly with the Manchester City situation, it may well be there's an extra place up for grabs there. So that will be what the teams are playing for pride and pushing on for a possible European place.
That would be awesome. Although I would be royally annoyed if we end up playing in Europe and we can't go. But no. Okay, so even though we won't be there in person, Dave, what can our fans expect from the stadium down at Palace?
Okay, well, Selhurst Park has been Crystal Palace's ground since 1924. And prior to that, they used to play at the old Crystal Palace Stadium, and that's where the club takes its name. That was, of course, the ground where Burnley beat Liverpool to win the 1914 FA Cup final. In this new normal, as we're in now, Selhurst Park has a current capacity of around 300, because that's now the restricted number of people that are allowed to enter any Premier League football ground on match days. Before that, you could expect to see crowds of just under 25,500 when the ground was full.
Excellent. Turning to performances on the pitch then, what's been the heaviest Burnley defeat at Selhurst Park?
Okay, one to forget this one. Burnley's heaviest defeat in past away games at Crystal Palace was in the last match of the regular season in 2007-08. Owen Coyle's Burnley side fell to a heavy 5-0 defeat. We weren't helped by a sending off. Clark Carlisle was sent off in the 7th minute and conceded a penalty into the bargain. So we were down to 10 men and a goal down in 7 minutes and went on to lose 5-0. And what made it worse as well is Neil Warnock, who was their manager at the time. That victory confirmed Palace's place in the playoffs, although I think they got knocked out in the semi-finals. They didn't get to the final that season, and they would have to wait another 5 seasons to get themselves out of the Championship and promoted to the Premier League.
Excellent. Quick pause in proceedings there. What do you think of Warnock being appointed the borough manager? I think that's a good appointment for them.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, he's certainly got experience. It seems an odd decision to go all through lockdown and then suddenly sack a manager when you're a week into the season when it's restarted again. So I don't know.
Yeah, my boss actually at work is a massive Borough fan, lifelong Borough fan. So we talk quite a lot, pretty much every day about football. And he made that very point that he was annoyed that they waited. But I did remind him that throughout 90% of lockdown, the team haven't been training. They've been at home. It's only really been a couple of weeks before Project restarted that they could get back to the training ground. So theoretically, I'm not sure it would have made that much difference if they'd have changed their manager at the beginning of lockdown, because he couldn't have done anything for 12 weeks anyway. So I get the point, but I think they can probably be allowed the exception there. It was funny as well. The same boss also said to me, he had a bit of a whinge and said that he was annoyed because he thought that they were going to play awful football and it was going to be long ball, dinosaur football under Warnock, which I did remind him. I just said, like, have you been playing free-flowing, attacking, beautiful football throughout this season that's seen you nearly relegated out of the Championship? And he kind of like went, oh yeah, okay, that's a good point. So I was like, you know what, I think he'll keep them up. Anyway, I'm sorry, I digress.
They're in the dogfight, so he may save them, he may not. We'll see.
I think he will. I think this is a good appointment for them. I think they've probably just about got luck on their side that they'll stay up. But how the mighty have fallen. Anyway, we don't care about Borough. What am I talking about? Clarets. Biggest Burnley win. Oh, we have an amalgamation of topics, Dave Roberts. A biggest Burnley win and Burnley's last win. What is this?
Yes, our last away win. We've actually had 5 previous away wins at Crystal Palace over the years. 2 of these were by a margin of 2 goals, and the most recent of those 2 was a 2-0 victory at the end of April 2017. You may recall that we were fighting for survival that season, and although our home form had been reasonably good, we hadn't won away from Turf Moor all season. We played 17 away Premier League games and we hadn't won any of them. But on a sunny late Saturday afternoon in front of the BT Sport cameras, a goal from Ashley Barnes early in the first half And then another goal late on from substitute Andre Gray, 5 minutes from the end, provided us with a vital victory and 3 valuable points. And we went on to survive reasonably comfortably at the end of that season.
Excellent. What about some head-to-head stats then, please? Talk us through those.
Okay, we'll just mention that in terms of the away wins. We've played 23 matches in total at Crystal Palace. We've won 5 of them. We've drawn 8 and lost 10. That gives us a win percentage of 21.7%, and that's just above our overall away average win percentage against all the other teams we played this season. We've mentioned this when we've done other preview shows. That's rule of thumb, it's 1 in 5, so about 20% of games we've won on average. Crystal Palace is 21.7, so we're just slightly better from that point of view. But for top flight away matches, it's actually quite a little bit better. We've played 6, we've won 3 of them, drawn 1 and lost 2, so we have a win percentage of 50%.
Brilliant. Remind me again, Dave, because it has been a while since we talked about this. What do we normally fall at? So you're saying obviously that our top flight away is only 50% for this one. What would you consider to be a good figure? I always get confused with these.
Sorry, for away matches, the average is 20%. So we only win 1 in 5 of our away matches. That's overall times. That's going back to the start of the league football starting. So for away matches, 1 in 5. For home matches, it's about 1 in 2, so it's about 50%. We win half of our matches at Turf Moor. So they're the 2 figures to have in your head. 50% at Turf Moor, 20% away from home. So when you see a figure and think, we've only ever won 21.7%, that's good. It's a little bit better than average, so it's not bad. Right. I mean, we've gone times, haven't we? We've gone through. We mentioned that particular season, the 2017-18. We only won 1 that season. We only won 1 away from home in our first Premier League season. We won at Hull and only had two draws, I think, for the rest of the season. So the average is 1 in 5. So that's the way to think about it from an away perspective.
No, that's really good. I always, especially when it's been a while since we recorded one of these, I always think, oh God, remind me what stats am I looking at again? But no, they're really good. Excellent. So, Monday, who is the man in the middle? What joys do we have as a referee?
We've got Simon Hooper. He's the referee at Selhurst Park on Monday evening, and he's been quite a lucky referee for Burnley over the years. We've had 7 wins from matches, 11 past matches when he's been in charge, with 2 draws and just 2 defeats in the other 4 games. So far this season, he's been the referee for 2 of our away games. He was in charge at Bramall Lane when we lost 3-0. That was back in November, and he was also in charge for our 2-1 win. That was away at Southampton at St Mary's in February.
Excellent.
Celebrity fans.
And then the new feature, which is what I love immensely, celebrity fans. What Palace fans have we got in the delights of the entertainment and celebrity world?
I keep trying to tweet these out, and hopefully one day we'll get a mention back from one of these people. But the names we're going to mention this time, we'll be very complimentary about them in case they do. We've got actor Neil Morrissey. He was in Men Behaving Badly and quite a few other things. Comedian and actress Jo Brand.
Oh, I love her.
TV presenter Susanna Reid, politician Chuka Umunna, comedian Kevin Day. He's a big Crystal Palace fan. He's done quite a lot of broadcasting and always seems to mention Crystal Palace whenever he's doing that. Ben Bailey Smith, who records and performs as rapper Doc Brown, and also actor Liam Neeson.
Wow, there's some good celebrities there.
A decent selection, because sometimes we struggle on these. I think we struggled for the Watford one, and we struggled for Bournemouth. But this, a better selection, I think, for Crystal Palace there.
It is. We'll get it tweeted out, and I'd quite like to get a response from Liam Neeson. That would be nice. Excellent.
Statman Dave's Stat of the Week.
Well, I just don't think that that's enough. I know you, Dave Roberts, and I know that you want to treat our listeners to something special. So why don't you delve into the Statman Dave Bank and give us your miscellaneous Stat of the Week?
Okay, this week's Stat of the Week is perhaps one more for the Crystal Palace fans and the Burnley fans, but it does relate to attendances, bearing in mind it's going to be a 0 attendance behind closed doors and no supporters at the match. It might be difficult to imagine, but back in 1979, a crowd of over 50,000 crammed into Selhurst Park, and that was to cheer on Terry Venables' men. Back then, the final match of the season weren't always played concurrently. So Crystal Palace's last match of the season, which was their game in hand against Burnley, was played after the rest of the teams in the second division season had all finished their games. 3 outcomes were possible. If Burnley won, Palace would miss out on promotion. A draw meant that promotion would be confirmed for the Eagles, but the home side also needed a victory in order to win the title. Late in the game, it was still 0-0, with mid-table Burnley defending valiantly. 14 minutes from the end, Ian Walsh scored a header from a Vince Hilaire cross, which sparked a mini-pitch invasion. Order was restored, and Dave Swindlehurst sealed the win with a second goal for Palace in the 88th minute. And this match remains Crystal Palace's record home attendance, and bearing in mind that the capacity now is less than half of what it was back then, it may well be one that stands forever.
God, that is a good one. I love those. I love those end of season games where things twist and turn like that. We were wondering, actually, looking at the fixtures in the Premier League this year, whether we will get something to play for still in the last game of the season. And I do hope so. I do like it. I like it when you're watching it live and they flick instantly between the games when there's been a goal and you know what's going on, and it changes the dynamic massively. It's always really exciting. So what? Obviously, they're the stats then, Dave. What? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm sneezing all over our listeners. The hay fever season's got me, listeners. I'm sorry if I'm sounding like I've got a cold. I don't. You don't need to be concerned about my health. It's just hay fever. What are your thoughts then? Obviously, I think we're all feeling a little bit brighter after the Watford game last night, Dave, which we touched on earlier. Palace away is going to be not an easy game by any stretch of imagination. I think Palace have very much found their feet this season. They've got a good side. Manager seems to be getting the best out of them, and I can see them. I can see them really pushing for a European place next season. That said, we've got 2 games who now have absolutely nada to play for, and I'm not entirely sure that either of them will want the poison challenge that is the early rounds of the Europa League. So I'm not entirely. I'm struggling to call this. I don't know whether or not it will be comfortable for us. Whether we'll take an opportunity to play some fringe players and rest people. Whether Palace will do the same. It's going to be a very, very difficult game, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think. Well, we're not going to have too many options from a personnel point of view. I think I'll be happier if I see Jay Rodriguez's name on the team sheet. I think if we've had to put him to the bench or he misses out altogether following Monday, that would be a big disappointment and a big risk to our chances, really, from that perspective, because we don't have, sides like Manchester United who made 5 substitutions together, didn't they, in the match at the weekend. We just aren't able to do that with the squad that we've got and the bench that we've got. So it's going to be difficult. Games are coming thick and fast. We need to manage it, make sure the players are ready, and hope we have a little bit of luck with injuries and suspensions, and we don't suffer too much from that. It's going to be a tough match. We've said already that our record away from home, we only win 1 in 5. I think a point at Palace would be a good point. If we came away with a point on Monday night, I would be reasonably happy with that. That's not to say that we can't go ahead and win the game down there. It's always possible. But I think realistically it may well be that a draw would be something that most fans would take ahead of the game, and we'll just have to see how it pans out on Monday evening.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. I guess my only add-on I would say about Jay is that given that we won last night and given our position in the table, I'm not entirely sure I'd be too upset if Jay doesn't make it. If it's even borderline, I would be tempted to rest him. There's 0 point and 0 benefit to pushing Jay to play any amount of minutes if he's not anything other than 100% ready, because what you don't want to do is antagonise any injury there or just make things worse. So if there's even 1% chance that he isn't quite right to play, I don't have any problems with him either being on the bench or being dropped altogether.
Who are we going to play instead?
We'll just play 4-5-1 and put Matty up front.
I think it may well end up being Eric Peters fullback and Charlie Taylor in midfield. I know we've done that in pre-season games before, haven't we? And maybe once, twice in matches late on.
Yeah, I think if we were going to do that, I'd prefer Eric Peters further up, just because I'm not a big fan of if you need to play somebody out of position and you've got two players on the pitch who play the same position and one of them has to try something different. I'd much rather have the regular player stay in his position. So I'd much rather keep Charlie Taylor at left back and get him. He plays very well with those back five, and I just don't see the point in changing that. Eric Peters isn't a regular starting choice. It doesn't matter if he struggles at the front. And I just think, I don't know, I just, to me, protecting Jay from an injury perspective is more important than making him worse, trying to get 3 points in a game that actually will not make a slight bit of difference to our season, probably.
Either that or Kevin Long up front, as you said.
Yay! I just want to say Kevin Long, Kevin Long, I want to do that again before the end of the season. I'll be doing that in my living room.
It'd give them something to think about. We won't have researched too much about his play, would they, in terms of playing up front?
Isn't unknown, yeah. But listen, I think that was my only concern with that. I just think there's no point in risking Jay for the sake of a nothing game. Believe me, if we were in Villa's position or West Ham's position or Bournemouth's position, then yeah, absolutely, do what you need to do. But at some point with a threadbare squad and all sorts going on off the pitch, I think we need to be sensible. Okay, so that's everything from our Palace preview. Do make sure you tune in where you can, and fingers crossed for a good result for the mighty Clarets.
Fantasy Premier League update.
So we finish this week's, it's not even this week's anymore, is it, Dave? We finish this episode of the preview show with a look at the No Nay Never Fantasy Premier League. It's been a while since we looked at this, Dave. Why don't you talk us through the movers and shakers in our coveted league?
Okay, yeah, we provided an FPL update in our last preview show that we did, myself and Matt did, and since then we've had another full set of 10 games, so it's worked out quite well with the timings, really. But there's been no change at the top in terms of our top three. Just remind you, we had Bennett Howarth, Tall Paul and Michael Freeman. They've all kept their places in the same order in the top three of our Fantasy Premier League table. So we're going to look a little bit further down and see who else is in the top 10. And I think realistically at the stage we're at, those ones who are in with a chance of making a charge to the top of the table before the season finishes at the end of July. How
sounds
does
good.
That sound, saying the season finishing at the end of July? So starting from 4th position and moving down the table to 10th, these are the other managers in our top 10. We've got Rob Greenwood, Max Robinson, John Sutcliffe, Tom Mitchum, Dale Warrington, John Pickup and Joshua Bedgood. And they are the other managers in the top 10 who they'll be hoping that maybe there's an outside chance of them pushing on and getting into the top 3 perhaps, or maybe even winning it overall. There are 7 games still to go, so if you're making some canny substitutions and using any free hits you've got, then there's still a chance that they can make some progress. In terms of other positions, Richard Steele in 16th place. He's the best placed of the No Nay Never team, well above you and I, Natalie, because the preview show presenters today aren't performing quite as well, are we?
Well, I was just going to ask. I was going to literally hold my hand up and go, why isn't my name in the top 10 managers who's going to make a run for it before the end of the season?
Got to look a little bit further down. My Burnley Stats team is now in 122nd position. That's a fall of 4 places. And your Dingle Bells team, Natalie, they remain in 161st position. That's just above the bottom 3. So I've got 164 teams in total. We've got the bottom 3, and then you're just literally hanging on just above the relegation zone.
But that's okay, because 17th is survival, and as long as I don't drop into that bottom 3, then it doesn't matter. Another season.
I think when there's so many teams, I think 5 go down.
That's not true. No, hang on a minute. That's not true. That was not the deal. Bottom 3 go down. And quite frankly, it looks like I'm going to secure myself another season in the No Nay Never Fantasy League. So I'm taking that. I'm taking that as a win.
To be fair, there's no relegation. Anyone can have a go next season.
Good. I said that I might actually try next season, and I might do something on a weekly basis with my
fantasy. You've not been trying, right? Okay. Yeah.
Have I, heck? Most of the time on the previous show, you say something to me, I'm like, what is that? What do you mean I changed my captain? What do you mean? What's a free pass? What's this? And I have no idea how it works. Where do we stand with the Premier League's the Fantasy Premier League's dream team, please, Dave.
Well, despite our victory over Watford, there weren't any Burnley players in the game week 31 dream team, although Nick Pope did add 10 points to his tally, thanks to another clean sheet. That's his 12th clean sheet of the season. He's still joint top, I think, with Alisson now for the Golden Glove, so that's something to look out for in the next 7 games. Unlike last weekend's round of matches, any managers with both Nick Pope and Manchester City's Ederson in their squad would have done significantly better if they'd selected Nick Pope this time around. He got 10 points, but Ederson only got 4, so it was a bit of a turnaround from Monday. Burnley getting defeated 5-0 and obviously suffering from that perspective. If you had both goalkeepers, and that's my squad actually, I've got Nick Pope in there and Ederson. I made the wrong choice. I kept Ederson in from Monday night and been better off changing to Nick Pope.
Oh, there you go. This is the kind of tactics that I don't understand. Well, we're going to be giving you another Fantasy Premier League update. Might not be in our next preview show. What we might do is do them every other one, depending on when the Burnley fixtures fit between teams.
We might be okay for the next one, mightn't we? With it being Sheffield United not till the following Sunday, so we might be.
It's got 6 days. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've definitely got. Yeah, we'll definitely do that then. So we will definitely look at this next game, and yeah, we're gonna keep you updated. It's getting to the business end of the season, Dave. We're gonna find out who's gonna be who's gonna be crowned the winner of our coveted no prize at all championship. It's exciting. I'm dying to see who it is. I hope Tall Paul does it, just purely because I know him, and that would be nice.
Stackman Dave's quiz question.
Finally then, let's leave our listeners, Dave, with a quiz question. What would you like our listeners to look into this week?
I'm going to give you credit before we start, because we did the Manchester City preview going back months and months ago now, and you did know the answer to that question. I know you weren't here doing the preview show for the Watford game when we mentioned that one, but you did know that Ben Mee was the last Burnley player to score at Manchester City in a Premier League game. So
there you go. Thank you.
Credit where credit's due. This time, well, when we go off air, you'll tell me this and we'll mention it in the next show. But for everyone else, the question for this week is, the last time Burnley failed to convert a penalty in an away Premier League match was at Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace, but who was Burnley's unlucky penalty taker that day?
I don't immediately know this, but I think I can probably make a decent guess. So I will guess off air and I'll see if I get it right. Excellent. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can submit their answers, please, young Dave?
Yes, they can tweet us or send us a direct message on Twitter. That's at NoNayNever. Alternatively, email us, podcast@nonaynever.net. Or you can also reply on the post for this preview show. We'll put one up there on the Facebook page. So that's No Nay Never on Facebook as well. And we'll reveal the correct answer at the start of our next preview show, which, of course, will be for the home game against Sheffield United.
Excellent. Well, that is all we have time for this week. It has been thoroughly enjoyable to come back and do a preview show, which is just one of my most favourite things to do. I absolutely love it. We will be back. I think we're going to try and record the main show over the weekend to have a look at everything that's gone on this week away at Manchester City and home to Watford. So keep your eyes peeled for that when it drops. Otherwise, like you say, Dave and I will be back at some point, probably next Friday actually. We might be able to get a proper Friday night preview show in, Dave, ready for the Sunday game for Sheffield United. It is Sheffield United, isn't it, next?
It is, yes.
In the meantime, if you've got any questions, quiz answers, feedback, anything that you want to talk about, then you know how to drop us a line. Thanks to producer Matt for knitting all of this together and getting it out. But my thanks always to Dave for just working so incredibly hard to get all the stats together. And I know you enjoy it, Dave. It doesn't feel like a chore, but goodness me, you really do work hard in putting this show together. So thank you very much. This has been the No Nay Never podcast, the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast, should I say. Until next time.